Greetings everyone. Today we're going to explore writing equations of quadratics. So far this unit, when given information, you have created a graph and identified the key features. Now we're going to do the opposite. Given the key features of the graph, let's write the equation. Here's our main information for this section. Two forms that we're typically going to write an equation in, vertex and intercept form, which you already have notes on. So why not standard? Well, because any equation can be turned into standard, but if I'm given the vertex or I'm given the intercepts, it's much easier to plug it into vertex or intercept form first. Steps for writing the equations. Depending, first of all, on what information you're given, decide which form to use. Are you given the vertex or are you given intercepts? Step 2 is to substitute the key information in that you were given. Step 3, substitute an x and a y from a random point and solve for a. So you won't be given that leading coefficient, that vertical stretch or compression, the value out front, however you want to think of it. You won't be given that. So you need to solve for it using, for example, the vertex and an x and a y point to find the a value. And of course, in the end, your final step is to write the equation as it should look. All right, let's take a look at an example. In this particular example, we're looking to write the equation of a parabola that has a vertex of -3,2 and passes through the point 4, 5. So, given the vertex, that means I want to use vertex form. A, parentheses, x minus h squared plus k. I'm going to fill in my vertex values. So this is going to become +3 on the inside, and I have +2 on the outside. Then I need to find my a value. So to find my a value, I need to use the given point. I have an x and a y coordinate. If I plug in 5 for y, and I plug in 4 for x, now I can see the only variable I have left is a. So if I calculate, I end up with 7 squared, which would be 49. I'm just going to rearrange this so you can see what I'm doing here. I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. Now I'm just solving and divide by 49. So a equals 3 over 49. Not done yet. That just found my a value. I need to write my final equation. F of x is equal to the a value that I calculated, x plus 3 squared, and plus 2 for my vertex form. All right, example 2, we want to write an equation of a parabola that has x-intercepts of -1 and 6 and passes through the point 1, 5. So key thing here, x-intercepts. So I want to use intercept form. So that looks like x minus p, x minus q. Now in this case, I have -1. So that's going to look like a +1 inside those parentheses, right? Don't know my a value. Fill all that extra stuff in. And then I can see that 6 is also a vertex. So that's going to be represented as x minus 6. So be careful with that sign change there, okay? Now, I don't know any other information, so this is where I need to plug in my point. So instead of x, I'm going to plug in 1. Instead of y, I'm going to plug in 5. See what we have left over here. All right, so I've got 5 equals a times 2 times -5, which is really -10a. Let's divide, and I get a equals -1/2. So that looks like a more, the typical a value we've been using so far. But I'm not done. I need to write my final equation. -1/2 is my a value with an x plus 1 and an x minus 6. Now, if you wanted to double check this answer, okay, you could go to your graphing calculator. You could plug this into your y equals, and then you could make sure that it has intercepts at -1/6, that it goes through the 0.15. You could do just a quick visual check to make sure that it's true. All right, let's take a look at one more example. This one's going to require a little more space, a little more time, because if we take a look, our intercepts are imaginaries. So make sure you have some space. Let's start off by just writing the equation using intercept form. So intercept form is x minus, and then we plug in our intercepts. Well, I have an intercept of -9 plus I radical 5, and an intercept of -9 minus I radical 5. If I take a look at that whole intercept, I don't like the way the signs are sitting. So the first thing I'm going to do is distribute that negative into those parentheses. That will leave me with a +9 minus I radical 5 and a +9 positive I radical 5. All right, now typically we would just jump straight into plugging the x and the y in. But as you take a look, I would never leave my equation written this way. So if at the second step it isn't the way you would leave it, then simplify what you have. To do that, that means I have some major FOILing ahead. Okay? Keep bringing down that f of x equals a. Let's not worry too much about that. Let's go through and FOIL. So first would be x times x squared. Outer would be x times all of the outer. So that would look like plus x times all of it. I'm just going to leave it in parentheses for now. Inner would be x times all of this. So positive x times this complex number. And last, all right, here's where we got some work ahead of us. Last is going to be 9 minus I radical 5 times 9 plus I radical 5. Complex number times complex number, which means I'm going to have to FOIL that out. Okay. Now, as I take a look, it's the same thing, just opposite signs. So when I think about FOILing, I don't need that outer inner. You could do it, but it's extra work. What really matters is first and last. I'm going to do it off to the side here. First is going to be 9 times 9. That's easy. Outer is going to be negative I radical 5 times positive I radical 5, which would be a negative I radical 5 times itself. Bring down that 81 minus. It gets me to I squared and radical 5 squared. I squared is -1. Radical 5 squared is 5. -1 times 5 is -5. 81 plus 5. All of this simplifies down to 86. All right, let's take a look at some of this other work over here. I'm going to keep the x squared. I'm going to distribute this x into the parentheses. Now it's going to look weird with that xi radical 5, but just go with it, because what you'll notice is when I distribute the next x, I get the same thing, just opposite signs. So now, taking a look, those crazy xi radical 5s cancel. I have an x squared, 18x if I combine like terms, plus an 86. Now that looks like standard form, what I would need for my final answer. So now I can deal with my 7 and my 9. Let's plug those in. We got 7 squared 18 times 7 plus 86. So we have let's just take care of all of that in one shot. I got 261. And then if I divide, I've got a equals 9 over 261, which does reduce to 1/29. So looking back, I'm not going to plug this a back into the very original. I want to plug it into this nice, clean, standard form. I'm just going to jump up a little bit here and say f of x is equal to 1/29 x squared plus 18x plus 86. Now, we don't ever leave parentheses in our final equation. So I'm going to distribute that a to get rid of parentheses. So in the end, f of x is equal to 1/29 x squared plus 18/29 x plus 86/29. I know they're crazy fractions, but go with it. Now this one you can't visually check as well, right? Because I know it's not going to cross the x-axis. I'm not going to see those intercepts clearly. So you really have to take your time, show your steps, use a lot of paper so that you don't miss anything just from maybe sloppy writing or trying to squish it. So taking a look, we're still working on that standard form, vertex form, intercept form. We need to become fluent in graphing these, writing these, giving information. So if you need any extra help, rewatch the previous videos. Let me know, check in Sabre time, and until next time, have a good one.